Photos of me as a kid can clearly be divided into two piles. Early me, young Sam, up to about the age of 6, and then everything that came after that. Young Sam is joyful, unguarded, free, unbridled sense of life. But slightly older Sam looks cautious, withdrawn, not really participating, observing, careful and guarded. Because from about the age of 6, I knew I was wrong, that I was failing. I wasn't really clear what I was failing at, but I knew how it felt. And then that feeling was a knowing, and that took me years to really understand. See, I was a terrible girl. I wasn't sweet or delicate. I didn't skip or giggle. I was solid and dependable and reliable and capable, but none of that felt girly. And I didn't want to be a boy, and so in a gendered playground, I had no idea where to go or who to be, and I couldn't find a place to fit. And so it took me some time to understand that the thing I was really failing at was gender, and all of the expectations that come from a pervasive and persuasive system that expects people to perform in a certain way. And it was clear to me that was the thing I was failing at. Imagine, if you will, that the world is a field. Don't worry, I'm not leading you towards flat earth theory. Imagine the world is a field, and in the middle of that field is a sprinkler system, an irrigation system, an arm that goes out and around the field, and it provides the field with water and nutrients. And so people close in the middle of the center of that field, that's a rich, deep, fertile soil. And the further you get back from the center of that field, then the weaker the irrigation system is, until eventually you run out and you're in a corner, a dusty brown corner that isn't fed by that system at all. That's how I think of gender, as that system, that irrigation system. It's providing people who kind of naturally live in the center of that system with a lot of reward. And for people who live closer to the edges or right out in the corners, no reward at all. And so I have come to understand my performance of gender as performing from the corners. For a while there, though, I watched everybody in the middle of the center of the field. And I watched really closely. That's what you can see in those photos. I'm watching the world and I'm learning what it means to perform. And I start to lay on the character traits or behaviours of well-performed gender, like post-it notes that I put on myself. And I layer post-it notes and post-it notes and post-it notes as though you can put the right thing on the surface to cover the wrong thing underneath. And eventually, I can't move. And I can't breathe because I'm so covered in post-it notes. And so I do the only thing that seems left to do, and I start coming out. And I tentatively, tenderly take off post-it notes and try and figure out what was underneath all along. And in doing that, I go in search of people like me. Now, this was before the internet, which instantly just aged me. And so I couldn't find TV heroes. I didn't know any role models. There was nobody to Google. And so I did the only thing really that this nerdy kid knew how to do, and that was I went to a bookshop. I went to a bookshop and I meant to bring it, I found a soft white paperback called The Coming Out Stories. And I bought 2 other books so I could sandwich it safely. And I took those 3 books to the counter and hoped no one would notice the middle one, and I took them home, and I'm ashamed to say I threw the other 2 away. And then I read those coming out stories from cover to cover in one go. And I finally felt like I found the fabric of a life I recognised woven together to make sense of identity and being and belonging. And that book led me to other books. Those books led me to magazines, the magazines led me to pubs and clubs, and eventually to people who had stories like mine. Other books led me to university, and the university life led me to other people with other stories. And eventually I found a way to knit together storytelling from corner-dwelling folk who made sense of everything for me. I didn't just feel like I was coming out anymore. I felt like I was coming in. I was coming in to who I was always. I was coming into the person who didn't know they were wrong, to who I would have been if nobody had expected me to be anything different. I was coming into that fabulous 5-year-old running across a snow-covered back garden full of joy. I was coming in to the fine human being I am. I was coming in, I was coming home. Because it turns out that there's not just power in those systems, there's power in the corners, there's power in the margins, there's power in self-acceptance, there's power in community and connection, there's power in recognizing a system that we live in, and there's power in resisting it. And there's power in living authentically and gently enough that you let that evolve. You see, I really do think words matter. I think reality relies on our ability to describe it. I think language is the architect of both concept and context, and that stories have the power to archive your past and to lay the foundations that frame your future. I think too many stories have been told by too few people, and that every story will glorify the hunter until the lion learns to write. A very wise colleague of mine said that stories don't just describe you, but stories also make you. Not just the power of a narrative of identity, but the creation of identity. The stories we tell ourselves make ourselves. The stories other people tell about us can make us. The stories that we hear about other people can help us make sense of the stories we have about ourselves. And so those corner-dwelling, storytelling communities that I found helped me knit together a narrative of identity and walked me home. So I would encourage all of you to come in, take off those post-it notes, find your stories and tell them. Because kids like me have lives worth living and lives worth saving. Thank you.